Over the past day, a lot of people have jumped into Battlefield 2042's new event, named the Archangel Directive, and the reaction has been overall pretty positive, I think. And there's always a spectrum to the reactions from the community. I'm usually on the much higher positive end of those for every event that comes along, because I have a lot of fun with them, but for this one, it was a little different. Technically, this is the best event we've ever had. It's got the most cohesive systems, and the sound design team, the UI design team, and the team that designed the transitions between each section of the mode all knocked it out of the park. These are a higher standard than anything we've ever had in previous events. But on the other hand, there are so many systems here that I feel don't quite work in unison like they should. There's a little bit too much chaos going on, but overall, I do like it. So I'm going to take you through my main points over the next 8 or so minutes and talk you through the things that work for me, the things that don't, and how they merge together, and maybe how they could be improved. First of all, I've got to thank my fellow creator, Raula, for coming on and playing with me. For some reason, his game had a persistence error for about 40 minutes that had to have a full fresh reinstall to fix. Wasn't ideal, but once we did get going, we jumped straight into the mode, and our first reactions are in the link below on his channel if you want to check those out. Anyway, let's talk about the mode itself. Essentially, there are various objectives around the map that you have to take and then defend. They have a counter on them that goes from 100 to 0, and as they drain, your team gets more points. Once they're on 0, they disappear, and once all objectives are gone on the map, a new set of objectives spawns in that have -1 to the old count. So you go from 4 objectives to 3 to 2 and to 1. This creates for a very hectic mode, and in theory this should work pretty great in creating hectic matches, but there are a couple of sub-mechanics here that work against it in certain ways, but overall it is a solid foundation for a mode. The battle gets worse and more hectic as you go on, but unfortunately it got worse in a few other ways for me and my fellow compatriot playing today, because it just felt a little more disorganized as you went on, and like there was just nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, nowhere to take good flanks or progress through different routes, and felt like too much of a meat grinder, and I really don't enjoy those experiences at all when it comes to Battlefield. I know some people do, but it's just not for me. Anyway, 48 players is the name of the game for this one, and I think that was a pretty good choice. When the mode's at the start and you have your 4 objectives, I feel like this gives a lot of breathing room to the players to do what they want to do. And while I did enjoy the lower player counts of previous events, you really felt the netcode and hit registration back then. When it's one-on-one, it's really easy to notice when the netcode doesn't act like it should. And while the game technically, of course, should act well all the time, unfortunately that's just not the reality of it, and a mode with 48 players does add a little bit of a veil between you and the netcode. So you don't really notice it as much because of the player count, because you're getting into engagements with more people, and you're dying to things that you may not notice as being bad, hit registration or netcode. However, I think the 48 player count does get a little too hectic as you progress on to the end, but at the start I did really enjoy myself. In terms of map rotation, we've got Orbital, which I think is the best out of the 3, Valparaiso, which is a little small but does offer a couple of avenues to play, especially in terms of elevation and places to go, and Reclaimed, which I think is the worst out of the bunch. It's too packed and crammed in, there's not much wiggle room to make good plays, and the vehicle count is insane for this map, it really is. I do appreciate the effort to bring in portal maps from before, and Valparaiso is nice to have here. Apparently we're getting another map next week, which is great. Last event and the ones before that, the one thing I said that I really wanted was a new map rotation each week. We're not getting that fully here, but we are getting a new map next week to add on to the count that we already have, which is good. I like that a lot. But anyway, the maps that we do have really are on a spectrum of how enjoyable they are for me. Some of them are too hectic. Orbital I find pretty good for its size and objective placement, but yeah, Reclaimed is just, it's too hectic, it really is. Now let's get on to one of the main points of the mode, which is the point system. This is a really great feature in theory, and it's something that I would kind of like to be brought into all-out warfare just as a standard, and that is that as you get kills, you capture, you get points which you can then put towards vehicles and vehicle call-ins. I personally think this is how it should be in all-out warfare. Anyway, you should get points which then allow you to call in vehicles, not just be able to call in, you know, a tank out of nowhere. You've got to get something to then reward yourself with a tank for doing actions in the round, and that's how it works in Control, the new mode, and I think that's great. However, the vehicle count is incredibly high, and I feel like the DICE team are kind of stuck in a position where they've got this point system where you can buy vehicles, but if they limit the vehicle count, you're never going to actually get one, leading to player frustration. So the map vehicle count has to be raised so more players can call in vehicles, and that turns into a massive hellscape of a map where you're getting attacked by helicopters everywhere, jets everywhere, and tanks everywhere. There was a point on Reclaimed where me and Rarula couldn't push to any objectives because there were 2 tanks and a helicopter just parked on the front line with no infantry able to get through them because they had a load of engineers just sitting there repairing them, and that map domination is very common to see. I've played around 9 rounds and the map has been dominated pretty much every time by one team. I don't think this is up to objective placement either, and I can't figure out for the life of me why this happens, but it does. Anyway, let me stop belittling the game mode. There are very good things about it. As I said, the points mode is great, and I would love to see it come over into all-out warfare, but perhaps for a smaller player count in this mode, it would lead to less chaos, and you'd actually be able to engage vehicles in an orderly fashion rather than getting blown up by them immediately, because they're pretty much everywhere. However, the actual mechanics of the mode, even though I feel like they don't gel together perfectly, do create some great moments. It's about 50-50 of me really enjoying the mode, and then as it progresses, it getting a little too much for me to handle. But I do know that some players really like that. They play Breakthrough because of that. They play Rush XL to get that feeling, and it's just not something I enjoy too much, but I do appreciate that some people do, and they'll probably really like Control. The idea of a closing in map I also would like to see with the lower player count as well, and I think that might be the crux of why I don't enjoy this one just as much as the last few events in terms of the amount of chaos it brings, and that is the player count. 48 is just a little too much in the later stages when you're all pushed onto one objective. It's a little rough sometimes. However, let's move on to the cosmetics, because it does bring a whole bunch of new cosmetics. As with all things with 2042, they are very expensive. That's just to be expected. That's how microtransactions kind of are at this stage. I think it's about £55 in UK money to get all of the bundles. That's pretty rough, but it's just unfortunately what we expect as the status quo with Battlefield, with Call of Duty, with Halo. Every AAA game is like this. Shouldn't be this way, but it is, so it's nothing new. But I would like the prices to be brought down, of course. I'm just assuming it's not feasible because of back-end stuff and needing to price things at certain price ranges. The cosmetics themselves are really high quality though. I personally don't like the art direction with some of the player cosmetics that we've seen, but in terms of guns, I really like the striking red they've got going on with some of these. They look really good. In terms of free rewards, they're okay. You know, a charm, a weapon skin, and a player card isn't great for week 1, but they are free, and it's quite easy to get them because you can rack up ribbons fairly quickly within rounds. You're probably going to get to the end of these free cosmetics in no time at all. That's a pretty good thing. It means that people don't have to hop on and grind for hours just to get simple cosmetics. That's a plus. Apologies if this video has been a little more down than other 2042 videos. I have enjoyed this mode, just not as much as the ones that have come before it, which is kind of surprising to me. But there is so much work got into it in terms of the mechanics, the new sound effects, UI elements, props, and I'd like to see this upkept in the future. The quality of the stuff here is great. They just don't really gel together for much of an enjoyable experience for me, but it's just a me thing. Anyway, please do let me know what you think of the mode. Feel free to check out Rarula's channel in the description below as well. He's a lot more fast in terms of editing than me in terms of pace, and he has a very different style of content, but if you want to go check him out, I'd recommend it down in the description below. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe if you did enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one.